The darkness at 3,000 feet below sea level was absolute, broken only by the powerful lights of the deep-sea research vessel Nautilus Dream. Dr. Maya Patel pressed her face against the reinforced viewport, her dark eyes scanning the mysterious structures that lay scattered across the ocean floor. After 15 years of marine biology research, she thought she'd seen everything the depths had to offer. She was wrong. Those aren't natural formations, she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. The structures before her were too regular, too purposeful in their arrangement. Ancient ruins, perfectly preserved in the crushing depths. Dr. Patel, all due respect, but you're seeing what you want to see, her research partner, Dr. James Cooper, adjusted the vessel's external cameras with practiced efficiency. These are just unusual limestone formations. Interesting, but natural. Maya ignored him, focusing instead on the readings from their advanced scanning equipment. The structures were giving off faint energy signatures, something that shouldn't be possible at these depths. Take us closer to that central chamber, she directed their pilot, Lieutenant Maria Torres. Copy that, Doc. Maria's steady hands guided the vessel through the darkness. But we've got about 40 minutes left before we need to start our ascent. The Nautilus Dream glided forward, its lights illuminating what appeared to be an entrance. Maya's heart raced as they approached. She'd fought hard for this expedition, faced ridicule from her colleagues at the Oceanic Research Institute, but now... Wait! Maya called out. There. Can you see it? In the midst of the ruins, nestled within what appeared to be an ancient altar, sat a perfectly spherical object about the size of a basketball. It pulsed with a faint bioluminescence, casting a ghostly blue glow through the water. Probably just some deep-sea jellyfish, James muttered, but Maya could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Maria, can we get a sample? Maya asked, already reaching for her collection equipment. The lieutenant nodded, maneuvering the vessel's mechanical arms with precision. As they approached the sphere, the water around it seemed to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. The mechanical arm gently closed around the object. No one spoke as they carefully brought it aboard through the vessel's collection chamber. Maya's hands trembled as she approached the sphere in the ship's lab. Up close, she could see that it wasn't perfectly smooth as she'd first thought. Its surface was covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change as she watched. It's an egg, she announced, her voice filled with wonder. The scanning equipment confirmed it, there was something alive inside. James shook his head. Maya, we need to be careful here. This could be dangerous. No known marine species lays eggs this size, and certainly not ones that glow. Exactly, Maya replied, already setting up the containment unit. This is the discovery of a lifetime. The ascent to the surface was tense. Maya never left the egg's side, monitoring its vital signs and documenting every subtle change in its bioluminescence. By the time they reached their research vessel on the surface, the egg's glow had intensified. News of their discovery spread quickly through the scientific community. Most dismissed it as a hoax or a mistake. Some suggested it was merely an unusual geological formation. Maya didn't care. She knew what she had found. 3 weeks later, in her lab at the Oceanic Research Institute, Maya sat alone with the egg. The ridicule from her colleagues had intensified. They called her the Dragon Lady behind her back, mocking her insistence that the egg was something unprecedented. The egg's glow had been getting stronger each day. Maya had noticed that it seemed to respond to her presence, pulsing brighter when she spoke or touched the containment unit. She'd taken to talking to it during her late-night research sessions. They'll see, she whispered, placing her hand against the container. We'll show them all. As if in response, the egg's surface began to crack. Maya held her breath as she watched the first fracture appear. The bioluminescence grew so intense she had to shield her eyes. When she looked again, she found herself staring into the most intelligent eyes she'd ever seen on any creature. The hatchling was about the size of a sea otter, with iridescent scales that shifted between deep blue and violet. Four fin-like appendages extended from its serpentine body, and a row of bioluminescent spots ran down its length. But it was those eyes, golden, ancient, aware, that held Maya transfixed. The creature tilted its head, studying her with equal intensity. Then, to Maya's astonishment, it pressed its snout against the glass where her hand rested. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I'm Maya." The creature trilled in response, a sound that seemed to resonate in her chest. In that moment, Maya knew her life would never be the same. What she didn't know was that she had just witnessed the birth of a legend, one that would change not just her world, but the fate of humanity itself. She named it Atlas, after the Titan who bore the weight of the world. As she would soon discover, it was more appropriate than she could have imagined. That night, as Atlas slept peacefully in his specially designed aquarium, Maya received an urgent call. Unknown objects had been detected entering Earth's atmosphere, all heading for the deepest parts of the ocean. The timing wasn't a coincidence, and deep in her heart, Maya knew, Atlas's birth was just the beginning of something much bigger than any of them could imagine. 2 months after Atlas's hatching, Maya stood before the Institute's board of directors, her hands clasped behind her back to hide their trembling. The creature they'd initially dismissed as a curiosity had become impossible to ignore. Dr. Patel, Director Harrison Walsh leaned forward, his steel-gray eyes fixed on the tablet before him. "Your specimen has quadrupled in size. It's displaying cognitive abilities that exceed those of our most intelligent marine mammals. The Pentagon has expressed interest." Maya felt her jaw tighten. She'd known this day would come, had prepared for it, but the reality still sent a chill down her spine. "Atlas is not a weapon," she stated firmly. "He's an intelligent being under the protection of this institute. A being that can manipulate water at the molecular level," Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the head of marine biochemistry, interjected. She tapped her screen, bringing up footage of Atlas in his expanded habitat. The creature, now the size of a dolphin, was creating complex geometric patterns in the water, manipulating currents and temperature with impossible precision. Last week, he reconstructed the DNA sequence we showed him. In 3 dimensions. Using water molecules. Maya remembered that day clearly. Atlas had been fascinated by the double helix structure, studying it on the display screen before recreating it in his tank, each water molecule perfectly placed. It had been beautiful, and terrifying in its implications. "The military isn't the only one interested," Walsh continued. "We've received inquiries from pharmaceutical companies, tech firms, even space agencies. They're all offering substantial funding. Atlas isn't for sale," Maya's voice was steel. "And he's not a lab rat." Before Walsh could respond, the building's emergency lights began flashing. Maya's phone buzzed with an alert from her lab. Her heart stopped when she saw the security feed. Atlas's tank was empty. She ran from the boardroom, ignoring the shouts behind her. The institute's hallways became a blur as she sprinted toward her lab, her mind racing with possibilities. Atlas had never tried to escape before. He'd always seemed content, especially during their daily sessions where she taught him about human culture and science, and he shared glimpses of his own mysterious knowledge through his ability to manipulate water into complex, meaningful patterns. Maya burst into her lab and froze. Atlas hadn't escaped, he'd grown. The creature now filled nearly half the massive tank, his iridescent scales shifting through colors she didn't have names for. His golden eyes fixed on her with ancient wisdom, and the water around him swirled with complex symbols she'd never seen before. "My God," Dr. Rodriguez whispered from behind her. The rest of the board had followed, and now stood in stunned silence. Atlas turned his attention to the gathered humans. The water in his tank began to move, forming shapes and patterns that seemed to tell a story. Maya saw images of stars, of ancient civilizations beneath the waves, of battles that spanned galaxies. And through it all, creatures like Atlas, standing guard over countless worlds. He's trying to tell us something. Maya stepped closer to the tank. About his purpose, his origin. The images shifted, showing Earth's oceans, then dozens of points of light entering the atmosphere, the same objects that had been detected the night Atlas hatched. But now there were more, hundreds more, all converging on Earth's seas. They're coming, Maya realized, her voice barely a whisper. Whatever Atlas was born to protect us from, they're coming. As if in response, Atlas's bioluminescent spots pulsed with increasing intensity. The water in his tank began to swirl faster, and Maya felt a resonance in her chest, a deep thrumming that seemed to connect her directly to the creature's consciousness. Director Walsh stepped forward, his face pale. Dr. Patel, what exactly are we dealing with here? Atlas isn't just a new species, Maya replied, watching as the creature continued to grow, his form becoming more majestic with each passing moment. He's a guardian. Part of an ancient line of protectors. And he's warning us that Earth is in danger. The room erupted in urgent discussions, but Maya barely heard them. She was focused on Atlas, on the way he moved through the water with increasing purpose and power. In his eyes, she saw not just intelligence, but determination. He was preparing for something. We need to move him, she announced, cutting through the chaos. He needs access to the ocean. Whatever's coming, he has to be ready. Move him. Walsh scoffed. He's a scientific breakthrough. We need to study him, understand what he is. The lights flickered, and every screen in the lab lit up with the same warning, massive objects, moving through deep ocean trenches worldwide. Their energy signatures matched nothing in any database. Atlas's trilling filled the room, resonating at a frequency that made the glass vibrate. Through the water, he showed them one final image, Earth's oceans teeming with creatures like himself, standing against a darkness that threatened to consume everything. We don't have time to study him, Maya said, her voice firm. We need to trust him. Because right now, I think he might be our only hope. In the tank, Atlas continued to grow, his form becoming more magnificent with each passing moment. The water around him swirled with ancient power, and in his golden eyes, Maya saw the future of humanity hanging in the balance. The Pacific Ocean churned beneath storm-dark skies as Maya stood on the deck of the research vessel Horizons. 3 months had passed since they'd relocated Atlas to the specially constructed sea pen off the coast of Hawaii. In that time, he'd grown to rival a blue whale in size, his iridescent scales now visible from the surface as he moved through the deep waters below. Another contact, Lieutenant Torres called from the bridge, her voice tense. She'd transferred to the project after their initial discovery, her steady nerves proving invaluable as events unfolded. Depth 6,000 meters, moving fast. Maya gripped the railing tighter, watching the massive form of Atlas circle beneath the waves. The invaders, as they'd taken to calling them, had been probing Earth's defenses for weeks. Each incursion pushed further into territorial waters, testing responses, looking for weaknesses. They're learning, Commander Victor Reeves stepped up beside her, his weathered face grim. The veteran naval officer had been assigned to oversee the military aspect of what the government now called Project Guardian. Adapting to our detection methods. Maya nodded, her eyes never leaving Atlas's swimming pattern. He knows they're coming. He's been preparing. As if hearing her words, Atlas breached the surface, his massive head rising from the waves. Water cascaded from his scales, now a deep purple shot through with streaks of silver. His golden eyes fixed on Maya, and she felt the familiar resonance in her chest, their unique form of communication. Images flooded her mind, vast underwater cities, ancient battles, and creatures of darkness that consumed entire worlds. But there was something new this time, a sense of urgency she hadn't felt before. They're not just probing anymore, she realized, turning to Reeves. This is. The alarm klaxon cut her off, its wail echoing across the water. Multiple contacts. Torres's voice crackled over the intercom. Hundreds of them, rising from the Mariana Trench. Atlas's trill shook the air, and the sea around him began to glow with bioluminescence. Maya watched in awe as patterns of light spread through the water, forming complex geometric shapes that pulsed with energy. "He's calling them," she whispered. "Calling who?" Reeves demanded. His answer came in the form of movement, massive shapes rising from the depths all around them. At first, Maya thought they were whales, but as they breached the surface, she saw the truth. Dozens of creatures like Atlas, each unique in coloring but sharing the same ancient power in their eyes. More guardians, she breathed. They were sleeping, waiting for him to wake them. Reeves finished, his voice filled with wonder. The moment of awe was shattered by Torres's next report. First wave of contacts surfacing. 3 kilometers out. Maya's blood ran cold as she saw them emerge. Black, chitinous forms that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved with unnatural speed, their bodies writhing with tentacles and sharp appendages. Atlas's call changed, becoming deeper, more commanding. The gathered guardians responded, forming a battle line across the horizon. The ocean itself seemed to pulse with their combined power. Dr. Patel, Reeves grabbed her arm, pointing to the tablet in his hand. "Look at these readings. The energy they're generating, it's affecting the water at a molecular level. They're not just fighting in the ocean, they're fighting with it." Maya watched as Atlas led his kind into battle. The Guardians moved in perfect coordination, creating massive vortexes that tore through the invaders' ranks. Where the dark creatures tried to advance, they found walls of water pressurized to diamond hardness. When they attempted to retreat, currents caught them like nets. But the invaders were numerous and fierce. Their weapons, beams of energy that seemed to corrupt whatever they touched, cut through the water, forcing the Guardians to dodge and weave. The battle turned the Pacific into a maelstrom of light and shadow. "We need to help them," Maya said, watching as Atlas took a glancing hit that left a scorched mark across his scales. "How?" Reeves gestured to the chaos before them. "Our weapons would be useless in this kind of fight." Maya's mind raced, remembering every interaction with Atlas, every lesson shared between them. "Maybe not weapons," she said slowly. "But there might be something else we can do." She rushed to the ship's research lab, her fingers flying over the equipment. "Atlas didn't just show us his memories," she explained as Reeves followed. "He showed us their science, their understanding of water manipulation. We thought he was just communicating, but he was teaching us." Working frantically, Maya calibrated the ship's sonic equipment to match the frequencies she'd recorded from Atlas's communications. "Their power comes from resonance," she continued. "They're not just moving the water, they're singing to it, making it dance to their song. And if we add our voice to the chorus." Reeves caught on, already reaching for his radio to coordinate with other vessels in the area. As humanity joined the battle, adding their technology to the Guardians' ancient power, Maya felt Atlas's approval rumble through the water. The tide was turning, but she could sense that this was only the beginning. Whatever these invaders were, wherever they came from, they wouldn't give up easily. And as she watched Atlas lead both his kind and humanity in the defense of Earth's oceans, Maya understood that her discovery of that strange egg hadn't just been chance. It had been destiny. The command center beneath Pearl Harbor hummed with activity as Maya studied the holographic display of Earth's oceans. Red dots marked confirmed invader sightings, while blue indicators showed the positions of Atlas and his fellow Guardians. The pattern was clear, the enemy was no longer testing. They were gathering. They're concentrating their forces around the major oceanic trenches. Commander Reeves traced the clusters of red with his finger. The Mariana, the Puerto Rico, the Java, using them as staging areas. "Smart strategy," Dr. Rodriguez commented, her eyes never leaving her analysis of water samples from recent battle sites. The trenches provide cover and natural channels for movement. Plus, the extreme pressure at those depths gives them an advantage. Maya watched Atlas's indicator moving purposefully along the Pacific coast. In the month since the first major battle, he'd grown even larger, his powers increasing with his size. The other Guardians followed his lead, protecting shipping lanes and coastal cities from invader raids. "We've confirmed 19 distinct Guardian species," Maya reported, bringing up detailed scans. Each adapted to different ocean environments, different defensive roles. Atlas is still the largest, but the others are evolving too. A sudden alert drew their attention. The massive screen at the front of the command center lit up with live feed from a deep-sea drone. The footage showed one of the smaller Guardians, a serpentine creature they'd named Nimue, engaging 3 invader scouts. The Guardian's scales flickered with patterns of light as it manipulated the water around it, creating a vortex that trapped the enemy. "Look at that coordination," Reeves leaned forward. "The Guardian's using our drone's sonar pulses to enhance its attack." Maya nodded, pride swelling in her chest. The Guardians had quickly learned to work with human technology, incorporating it into their ancient abilities. It was a partnership that had surprised everyone, except her. "Dr. Patel." Lieutenant Torres burst into the command center, her usual composure shaken. "You need to see this. Atlas, he's doing something new." The main screen switched to live footage from a research vessel in the North Pacific. Atlas hovered near the surface, his massive form glowing with unprecedented intensity. The water around him swirled with complex patterns that Maya had never seen before. "Those symbols," Dr. Rodriguez breathed. "They're similar to what we found in the ruins where you discovered the egg." Maya felt the familiar resonance in her chest, stronger than ever. Through their connection, Atlas shared a flood of images, the invader's home dimension, a realm of eternal darkness where light and life were alien concepts. They didn't just want to conquer Earth's oceans, they wanted to transform them, to make them like their own lightless void. That's why the Guardians exist, Maya realized. They're not just protectors, they're preservers of life itself. The command center shook as a deep rumble passed through the earth. Seismographs worldwide lit up with activity. Multiple earthquakes reported along the Pacific Rim, an analyst called out. "No, wait, these aren't natural. The epicenters are moving." On the tactical display, red dots began pouring out of every major trench. Not hundreds this time, thousands. The invaders had launched their main assault. "They're attacking everywhere at once," Reeves grabbed his phone, barking orders to Naval Command. "They're trying to overwhelm us before we can coordinate a response." But Atlas had been preparing for this. His call echoed through the world's oceans, and the water itself seemed to come alive. The other Guardians responded, their own powers joining with his. Maya watched in awe as the tactical display lit up with new signatures, not just dozens of Guardians now, but hundreds. "More of them are awakening," she said. "From ruins and trenches all over the world." This was their plan all along, a graduated response to match the level of threat. The next hours were chaos as humanity and Guardians fought side by side. Naval vessels coordinated with the ancient creatures, using Maya's resonance technology to enhance their powers. Research stations worldwide broadcasted frequencies that helped the Guardians manipulate water on an unprecedented scale. Atlas led the defense, his massive form a beacon of hope wherever the fighting was fiercest. Through their connection, Maya felt his determination, his ancient purpose fulfilled in protecting not just the oceans, but the humans who had become his allies. But even as they pushed back the invasion, Maya sensed something more coming. Atlas's warnings grew more urgent, his patterns more complex. The invaders were losing, yes, but they had one final strategy, one last terrible weapon that could turn Earth's oceans into a graveyard. As she worked frantically to decode Atlas's warnings, Maya knew they were racing against time. The true test wasn't just surviving the invasion, it was preventing the apocalypse that would follow if they failed. In the waters above, Atlas gathered his forces for what would become the most important battle in Earth's history. The fate of two realms, light and darkness, life and void, hung in the balance. And somewhere in the deep trenches, an ancient evil was stirring, preparing to rise and claim its vengeance against the guardians who had thwarted its kind for eons. The Mariana Trench burned with otherworldly light as Maya watched from the reinforced viewport of the deep-sea vessel Nautilus Dream. They'd come full circle, returning to the depths where it all began. But this time, they weren't searching for mysteries, they were trying to prevent the end of the world. "Energy readings are off the charts," Lieutenant Torres reported, her hands steady on the controls despite the chaos surrounding them. "Whatever they're building down there, it's like nothing we've ever seen." Through her connection with Atlas, Maya felt the ancient guardian's concern. The invaders had retreated to the deepest point on Earth, gathering their remaining forces around a device that pulsed with corrupt energy. Its purpose was clear, to transform Earth's oceans into a gateway, allowing their entire dimension to pour through. "If that device activates," Dr. Rodriguez's voice was grim as she studied the readings, "it will alter the fundamental properties of water itself. The oceans will become a void, just like their realm." Above them, Atlas led the assembled guardians in a massive circle around the trench. Their combined bioluminescence turned the midnight waters into day, a defiant display of light against the encroaching darkness. But even their power seemed to waver against the void energy emanating from the depths. "We need to get closer," Maya insisted, though every instinct screamed against approaching that darkness. "Atlas is trying to show me something about the device, but the connection is too weak at this distance." Commander Reeves, who had insisted on joining this final mission, nodded grimly. "Take us in, Lieutenant. But be ready for immediate evacuation." As the Nautilus Dream descended deeper into the trench, Maya felt the pressure of darkness pressing against her mind. The invaders had learned to weaponize their very essence, using it to corrupt and transform everything they touched. Only the Guardian's light held them at bay. Suddenly, Atlas's presence filled her consciousness with unprecedented clarity. Through his ancient memories, Maya saw the truth: this wasn't the first time Earth had faced this threat. Eons ago, the Guardians had been created by an advanced civilization that foresaw the coming of the void. They were living weapons, but also preservers, carrying within them the original pattern of Earth's oceans. "That's it," she whispered, the pieces finally falling into place. "The device isn't just a gateway, it's a key. And Atlas. Atlas is the lock." The vessel shuddered as they passed the 7-mile mark. Through the viewport, they could see the device, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to drink in light itself. Around it, the invaders swarmed like shadows given form, their tentacles weaving streams of void energy into its matrix. Maya's hands flew over the ship's communications array, recalibrating it to amplify Atlas's frequencies. "The Guardians weren't just meant to fight," she explained rapidly. "They carry the original resonance of Earth's oceans, the fundamental frequency of life itself. If we can amplify that signal, we can disrupt the device." Rodriguez caught on, already helping to modify the equipment. "Use their own strategy against them." Above, Atlas began to sing. It was a sound unlike anything Maya had heard before, not just a call to battle, but a reminder to the ocean itself of what it was meant to be. The other Guardians joined, their voices weaving together in an ancient harmony that made the water vibrate with remembered life. Now, Maya activated the modified array, broadcasting the Guardian's song through every underwater speaker and sonar device in the area. The effect was immediate. The void energy surrounding the device began to waver, its corruption unable to maintain coherence against the pure resonance of Earth's true nature. The invaders recognized the threat too late. As their device began to destabilize, they launched a desperate final attack. Void beams sliced through the water, forcing the Nautilus Dream to take evasive action. But they couldn't escape in time, a direct hit shattered the main viewport. Water rushed in as emergency barriers slammed down. "We need to evacuate," Reeves shouted over the blaring alarms. "Now." But Maya couldn't leave, not yet. Through their connection, she felt Atlas's presence stronger than ever. He needed her to complete the pattern, to add humanity's voice to the Guardian's song. As the others rushed to the escape pods, she remained at the communications array, her fingers dancing over the controls even as frigid water rose around her. Atlas's massive form appeared outside the broken viewport, his golden eyes meeting hers. In that moment, their connection transcended mere communication. Maya understood that she had never really been the one protecting him, they had been protecting each other, two species learning to trust, to grow, to fight for a future where light prevailed over darkness. With the last of the ship's power, Maya broadcast the completed harmony, the Guardian's song merged with human technology in her own unwavering faith in the impossible. The device cracked, its matrix unable to contain the pure energy of life itself. As it shattered, the void energy collapsed in upon itself, creating a temporary gateway that pulled the invaders back into their own dimension. Maya felt strong currents wrap around her as Atlas pulled her from the sinking vessel. Together, they rose toward the surface, where the other Guardians were already beginning to heal the ocean of the void's corruption. The water grew warmer, brighter, more alive with each passing moment. Later, as she stood on the deck of a rescue vessel watching Atlas and his kind celebrate their victory, Maya understood that this wasn't really an ending, it was a beginning. The Guardians would remain, not just as protectors but as bridges between humanity and the deep. Earth's oceans had been transformed, not by darkness, but by the light of cooperation between species. Atlas breached beside the ship, now larger than any creature that had ever lived in Earth's oceans. But as he looked at Maya with those ancient, knowing eyes, she saw the same curious, intelligent being that had hatched in her lab. He was a legend now, yes, but he was also her friend. And together, they had written a new chapter in the story of Earth's oceans, one of hope, courage, and the enduring power of light against darkness.